A single dad of a boy, battle-worn soldier, two silent little girls, and a mother who guards her heart like a fortress of steel. But what happens when silence finally speaks? Settle in for a soul-stirring journey of quiet courage, unexpected love, and the kind of healing that changes everything. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe now for more heartfelt stories of second chances, found family, and the beauty of beginning again. Snow hissed softly against the glass, whispering down the long corridor like a memory, trying to find its way home. Jack Whitlow sat on the edge of his cot, boots laced tight, laces damp from where the snow had melted off earlier. The heater ticked behind him, struggling to warm the barracks. His son, Eli, 7 years old and bundled in layers too big for his frame, lay curled on the lower bunk, whispering to a toy Jeep with one missing wheel. Outside, the Montana base held its breath beneath a sky swollen with clouds. On the desk across from him lay a single envelope, unopened. The paper was wrinkled from being handled, folded, carried in a coat pocket. Transfer orders. Jack reached for it, then didn't. Instead, he picked up the music box, small, wooden, the kind with crank on the side. The lid was chipped. The tune inside barely played now, but it had belonged to her. He wound it once, twice. A brittle melody danced into the cold. Eli paused his whispering. "That's the one Mama liked." Jack nodded. Yeah, that was all they said. Sometimes grief was quieter than snow. They had come here 2 weeks ago, reassigned after Jack's record caught the eye of a colonel with too much sympathy and too many quotas. He called it a compassionate placement. Jack had seen too many men burn out to believe in the word. But this place, it was quieter. Quieter than Afghanistan. Quieter than the hospital corridors where he'd stood watching wires beep around the woman he loved. The silence suited him. He rose, tucked the music box into his duffel, and nudged Eli gently. "Time to go, bud." Eli blinked, then rolled off the bunk. The boy never asked questions about why they moved, why Jack sometimes stared at the horizon too long, or why their lives always felt half-packed. He just followed, like Jack had once followed orders. Blind, willing. The snow was thicker now. By the time they reached the logistics building, Jack's eyelashes had a dusting of frost. The world had narrowed into shapes. Fences, hangars, barracks, all softened by white. She stood on the steps before he saw her. Raina Callahan. Her uniform was pressed to perfection, dark wool coat buttoned high against her throat. She didn't shiver, didn't smile. Her eyes, sharp and unreadable, moved from Jack to Eli, then back again. "You're late," she said. Jack gave a nod. Had to wait out the wind. There was no reprimand, just a clipped motion of her chin. Then she turned and walked inside. He followed. She was younger than he expected. Late 30s. Not beautiful in the delicate way, but striking. Her voice didn't invite argument, and her heels clicked like punctuation down the corridor. Inside her office, a fire crackled. Not for comfort, probably regulation backup, but it threw warm light over cold steel. "Your quarters?" she asked, not looking at him. "Settled," he replied. "Eli's in school rotation. Got the supply schedule." She nodded, still didn't meet his eyes. He saw the picture frame turned face down on her desk, saw the tiny gloves, wet from snow, hanging on the radiator behind her, too small to be hers. "You've got kids," he said before he could stop it. Her gaze snapped to his like a rifle barrel. "Twins," she said. A pause. 5. Jack waited. She didn't offer more. He cleared his throat. "If you need any extra hands." "I don't." Her voice was flint. She turned to her papers. Dismissed him without words. Jack left, but not quickly. There was something in her eyes. Something past the frost. Not anger. Not superiority. Just exhaustion. The kind that lived in the bones. Back outside, Eli had made a snow angel that barely resembled anything but chaos. Jack offered a half-smile. "Let's go get your scarf," he said. That night, after Eli was asleep, Jack sat in the dark and ran his thumb over the music box lid. He didn't play it, just held it. Somewhere across the base, Through walls and snow, Raina Callahan tucked her twins into bed without a bedtime story. They didn't ask for one. They never spoke. Not since the fire. Not since the day their world changed without warning. A heater spark, a room of smoke, a scream that never made it out. They had survived, but the words had not. She watched them now, tangled in each other's arms, breathing slow and even. Chloe had begun drawing again. Ivy still flinched in loud rooms. Neither looked at her for long. She turned off the light and sat by the window. Snow shimmered under the moon. On the windowsill sat a pair of paper snowflakes. One had been cut crooked, the other too sharp. She had no idea where they come from. In the darkness, she whispered into her folded hands. Not a prayer, just the name of the one person who might have helped her hold it all together. But he was gone, and she was not the type to ask for help from anyone, especially not a man like Whitlow. Solid, stoic, kind eyes he tried to hide. Men like that were dangerous. They made you want to believe again. The next morning brought bitter cold. Jack's breath came in plumes as he jogged across the courtyard. The sun barely rose before breakfast. As he passed the school barack, he caught sight of two girls by the window. Pale coats, dark eyes, one with a braid unraveling. They stared at Eli. He didn't notice, but Jack did, and he slowed. A small gesture, just a nod. One of the twins tilted her head. The other blinked. Nothing more, but something shifted that night. When Eli fell asleep with crayon on his fingers, Jack unfolded the music box again, played one note. He looked out the window. Snow kept falling. And far across the base, in a room lit by a nightlight shaped like a bear, Ivy opened her mouth. No sound came, but she imagined it might. Someday. She reached beneath her pillow and touched the scarf someone had tucked there, red, warm, soft. She didn't know whose it was, only that it didn't feel like fear. It felt like kindness. The wind drifted softer that afternoon, like even winter had paused to listen. Jack crouched beneath the eaves of the rec hall, the hem of his coat damp where it brushed snowbanks. His breath curled as he tested the broken runner of Eli's sled, tightening a bolt with callous fingers. A thermos of cocoa steamed beside him, untouched. Across the open space, two small figures stood near the corner of the yard. The twins. They wore coats too puffy for their frames, and identical wool hats that sagged a little at the tops. Chloe clutched the edge of Ivy's sleeve. Ivy's other hand was curled into her own pocket, white-knuckled. They didn't speak, didn't move, but they watched. Eli sat beside his father, legs kicked out in the snow. He hummed something tuneless, tearing a page from a notebook and folding it slowly into a paper plane. He tossed it. It landed awkwardly, nose first in the snow. He giggled, then ran to fetch it. When he looked up, he saw the twins. He didn't wave. He just smiled, wide, gap-toothed and careless. Chloe blinked. Ivy's lips parted slightly. They didn't smile back, but they didn't run either. Jack felt it. A tremor in the quiet, the kind that says something small is about to matter. He reached behind him, pulled another sheet from the notebook, and began folding again. Not too fast, not perfect, just patient. When Eli returned, he handed the second plane to him and gestured toward the girls with a nod. Want to try? Eli hesitated. Think they want to? Jack didn't answer. He never forced kindness. Eli looked again, then walked slowly toward them. He stopped halfway, held out the plane. Chloe stepped forward. Ivy didn't. Jack held his breath. The wind stirred, and Chloe took the plane. She didn't fly it, just turned it over in her hands like it was a thing she hadn't seen in years. Then, without a word, she stepped back beside her sister. That was all, but it was everything. That night, Jack left a folded paper plane on the radiator outside the twins' door. No name, no message, just the wings, waiting. The next day it was gone. Inside Raina Callahan's office, the fire hissed low. She held a clipboard in one hand, a half-drunk mug in the other, her mind anywhere but the papers in front of her. She hadn't slept well. The twins were changing. Not wildly, not with any grand milestone, But something had shifted. Ivy no longer turned her face to the wall during breakfast. Chloe had started humming. Just once, just for a moment, but Raina had heard it, soft and trembling. And the scarf. The red scarf Raina hadn't seen in years, now folded neatly on Chloe's chair. It wasn't hers. Her fingers tightened on the mug. She didn't want to ask, didn't want to acknowledge the ache rising in her chest, the one that whispered you're missing something. She dismissed it like she always did, with silence and steel. The next afternoon, snow fell again, thicker this time. The courtyard was quiet. Most were indoors, but Jack and Eli sat on the back steps of the rec hall, folding more planes. A stack of them, each different. One had stars drawn in pencil. Another had a tail fin taped on. Jack didn't look toward the school building, but he felt them. The twins approached slowly. No boots crunching, just snow and breath and stillness. Eli stood, held one out. Chloe took it again. This time, she knelt beside him. Jack didn't move, just watched. Ivy stayed a few feet back, eyes wary. But when Eli laughed, just once, just softly, Ivy's head tilted. Eli pointed at the sky, then launched a plane. It curved beautifully. For a moment, the air was filled with its glide. Then it landed near Ivy's boot. She bent, picked it up, didn't let go. The next morning, 2 new planes appeared on the doorstep of Jack's quarters. Sloppy folds, too many creases, no names, but one had a star drawn in pink, and the other had a smiley face. Raina found them before Jack did. She hadn't meant to walk past, but her route had changed without her realizing. Her footsteps paused at the corner. Her breath caught at the sight of those tiny offerings, silent, hopeful. She didn't knock, didn't ask, but she watched through the window as Jack opened the door, looked down, and knelt slowly to pick them up. His son came up beside him. They made those. Looks like. Eli smiled. Can we make one back? Jack nodded. Later, Raina sat at her desk long after sunset. The twins were asleep. The heater clanked unevenly in the corner. In front of her sat her old leather-bound journal. She hadn't written in it since before. She opened it. The spine cracked. Pages yellowed at the edges. And she wrote, "Today, Ivy touched the plane." Chloe smiled. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, maybe. She stopped there. That night, as wind curled around the base like a lullaby for ghosts, Chloe awoke with a shiver. She padded to the window. In the moonlight, something sat on the sill. A plane, folded clean, edges crisp. On the wing, in black ink, "Fly it when you're ready." She clutched it close, then turned to Ivy, laid it gently between them. They fell asleep facing it, fingers touching its wing. And far across the snow-covered yard, Jack sat beside the heater, folding another one, slowly, carefully, as if wings could heal things words had long forgotten. The power went out just before dusk, not all at once, but in pieces. First the lights in the corridor, then the radio in the kitchen, then the dull whine of the base's heating system trailing into silence. Jack stood by the window, shoulder brushing the cold glass, watching snow pile higher against the barracks. The world outside was a moving blur of white and wind. The kind of storm that didn't ask permission, just took what it wanted. Eli lay cross-legged on the floor, drawing suns on the backs of paper planes. One yellow, one orange, one half finished. Across from him, Chloe and Ivy watched. No talking, no touching, just their eyes moving slowly between the planes and the boy making them. They had come over hours ago, quiet as breath. Jack had looked up from the stove, and there they were, cheeks pink, boots clinging to slush, huddled in their coats. He didn't ask how or why. He just opened the door wider. Now, in the hush of powerlessness, something sacred filled the room. Not silence exactly, but the feeling of being safe inside it. Jack knelt by the hearth and added another log. The fire flared gold and orange, licking shadows across the walls. "We can build one together," Eli said, holding out a new sheet of paper. Chloe reached first. Ivy hesitated. "Just fold the corner like this," Eli whispered, gently pressing his fingers into the edge, forming a triangle. Chloe mimicked him, a little clumsy but careful. Jack watched from where he sat on the floor, elbows on knees. His heart had learned not to expect much. But tonight, it hoped. Eli glanced at Ivy. "Want to help?" She stared at the paper, then at him, and nodded. Jack didn't move. He didn't dare. Eli slid the page to her. Their fingers touched for a second, a spark in the still. They folded the wings together. One crease, then another. Ivy looked at her hands. Then she said it, a single word. "Red." The room held its breath. Jack blinked. Eli froze, his mouth parted. Chloe turned so quickly. Her braids swung over her shoulder. Ivy sat perfectly still. Her lips pressed together now, trembling just slightly. "Did you?" Jack's voice barely made it out. He didn't finish the sentence. Eli dropped the paper. She said, "Red." "Dad," she said it. Chloe placed a hand on her sister's knee. Ivy didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered again, "Red plane." Jack swallowed, something hard in his throat. Then Chloe said, so quietly it could have been mistaken for breath, "Mine's blue." Jack looked at them, at these girls who had known fire and fear, now making color out of silence. And across the room, from the half-open door, Raina Callahan stood frozen. She had come to ask for backup lanterns. She hadn't expected to hear her daughters speak. Her mug slipped from her hand. It hit the floor with a soft clunk. The twins turned. Raina didn't move. For a second, she looked like someone who had forgotten how to breathe. Jack stood, slow, steady. He said nothing. Raina stepped inside, toward her daughters. Her eyes glistened but held no tears. "Not yet." "You," she began, then stopped. Ivy's eyes filled. She rose, unsure, one hand stretching forward, then pulling back. Jack crossed the girls, knelt. "It's okay," he said gently. "You can go to her." Neither girl moved, but their eyes did. Raina opened her arms, awkward, uncertain, like the motion no longer belonged to her. Chloe stepped first. Ivy followed, and for the first time in half a year, Raina Callahan held her daughters, not like they were made of porcelain, but like they were hers. She didn't cry. She broke, quietly, wholly, without sound, her knees folding beneath her, her arms closing around the only two things that had survived with her. Jack looked away. Eli pressed the finished plane into his father's hand. "It worked," he whispered. Jack nodded. Raina looked up, met Jack's eyes. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was raw. He shrugged. "Because they wanted to fly." She stared at him a long time, then looked at the plane in his hand. It was red, the wings a little crooked, a sun drawn on one side. She reached out and took it. That night, the power didn't come back, but the fire stayed. Jack gave them space, sat by the wall while Raina tucked the twins into Eli's bed. All three curled like kittens under a wool blanket. Ivy held the red plane against her chest. Raina stayed by them, rubbing Chloe's back, humming something broken and soft. Later, she sat beside Jack on the floor. They didn't speak for a long time. Only when the fire dimmed to coals did she ask, "Do you think it'll last?" "I think it's real," Jack said. She looked down at her hands. "I don't know how to be what they need. You're already becoming it." Raina turned her face toward the window. The snow still fell, but it didn't feel like a threat anymore. Just winter doing what it did. When she stood to leave, Jack reached for the folded blanket on the chair and placed it in her arms. "Thanks," she said. Then she paused and added, "For them, for this." Jack met her gaze. "They saved themselves," he said. "I just listened." Raina stood in the doorway a moment longer, then walked back into the dark, a red paper plane folded in her hand. The fire had burned low. Ash glowed like the last embers of a long-held breath, casting soft halos across the worn floorboards of the common room. Outside, the snow had stopped. The storm that had once blanketed the base in silence had passed, but its hush lingered, as if it had taught the wind to be gentle. Raina Callahan sat curled on the sofa, her legs tucked under her, a blanket draped over her knees. Her daughters were asleep in the next room, tangled in soft quilts and warmth they had once flinched away from. They slept deeper now. Eli had gone to bed hours ago, his head nestled against Jack's shoulder as he dozed off mid-sentence about rockets and stars. Jack had carried him with ease, tucked him into bed, and returned without fanfare. Now he stood at the far end of the room, backlit by firelight, holding something in his hand. "I fixed it," he said, voice low. Raina looked up. The music box. It sat cradled in his palm like something holy. She blinked. "I thought it couldn't be repaired." "It didn't want to play for me," Jack said, "but it did for you once. Maybe it remembered." He offered it to her. She took it carefully. Her fingers brushed his. She didn't pull away. The crank was worn, its wood faded. She turned it slowly, expecting nothing. But it played, soft and true, a fragile lullaby curling through the quiet. Raina exhaled, long, steady, like she hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "It was the last gift he gave me," she said. Jack didn't ask who he was. She told him anyway. "My father," she said, "not my ex. He left bruises, not music." Jack sat beside her, close but not touching. "He gave it to me before he passed," she continued, "so when the world got too loud, it would remind me who I was." "And who are you?" Her lips parted, but no answer came, only a soft smile, a sad one. "I think I forgot," she whispered. Jack didn't speak. He simply reached into his jacket and unfolded a page, a drawing, crayons, blunt edges, 4 figures, 2 small girls, a boy, a tall man, and a woman with gold around her like sunlight. "It's from Eli," Jack said. He said, "That's our team now." Raina touched the page gently. "I didn't know how to let them love me," she said. "They did anyway," Jack said. She looked up, and for the first time in years, she let someone see her completely, not the officer, not the mother barely keeping it together, just Raina. She reached for his hand. He held it, firm and warm. They sat that way for a long time. No need for conversation, just the sound of the music box and the pulse of firelight. Later, as dawn began to whisper through frost-laced windows, Chloe woke and padded into the common room. Ivy followed, blanket in tow. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They climbed into Raina's lap, as if they'd been doing it all their lives. Chloe leaned into her shoulder. Ivy rested her head on Jack's knee. Eli appeared too, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He climbed up beside Jack, sleepy and content. The 5 of them sat like that, in warmth and stillness, as the sun lifted the world out of its long white sleep. Jack reached into the drawer beneath the bench and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Yellowed, ink faded. He handed it to Raina. "What is it?" she asked. "A letter," he said, "from Claire, my wife, before the accident." Raina hesitated, then unfolded it. Her voice trembled as she read. "If something ever happens to me, don't stop being someone who believes in soft things. Teach Eli kindness, not armor. Love again, even if it's quiet. You deserve that, and so does he." Raina's eyes welled. She folded the letter back slowly, reverently. Jack took it and slipped it into the pocket over his heart. The room breathed with them. Raina leaned against him now, not out of need, but out of choosing. When the morning light fully broke over the hills, casting gold across the snow-swept grounds, Chloe whispered, "Mom." Raina stilled, then turned, her voice breaking gently. "Yes, sweetheart." Chloe looked at Jack, then at Eli, then back at her. "Can we stay?" Raina closed her eyes. "Yes," she said. She opened them. Her gaze found Jack's, and didn't look away. If this story touched you, subscribe or share where you're watching from. These stories matter.